I watched Karoline Leavitt's press conference today, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. We'll start with the craziest thing. She said with a straight face that President Trump doesn't use AI, at least she's not sure that he does because she's never seen him use it. Guys, this picture that he posted to his True Social this weekend, this is a real person holding a Trump 2028 sign. Let's get into the meat of it. They spoke for about 35 minutes. She had Linda McMahon there with her. She mentioned Biden 3 separate times and called it a Democrat-led shutdown 3 separate times, even though it's over. So Karoline has Linda McMahon there with her because this is supposed to be about dismantling the Department of Education. Now, they know that they can't just dismantle the whole thing because they're important programs. How do I know that? Because they talk about 6 different programs that they had to offload onto other agencies because they were part of the Department of Education and legally they weren't allowed to get rid of them. She also makes a claim that the Democrat shutdown proved that we don't need the Department of Education because enough staff was furloughed and schools themselves weren't interrupted, which is very funny because later Linda McMahon is going to get on and she's going to say that the Department of Education doesn't educate anyone because what they do is they protect like students' rights and they protect students from discrimination and all of that sort of thing. That's what the Department of Education does. They don't actually educate anyone. So when she says that 90% of the DOE staff was furloughed and yet schools remain open, that's a clear misunderstanding between the press secretary and the Secretary of Education, that the Secretary of Education is not responsible for educating children. They're responsible for providing programs which help children receive fair and equal educations. Also, I don't know enough about the Department of Education to call myself any sort of subject matter expert, but you can check out Miss Frazzled. I'll tag her in this video. She's fantastic and she knows a lot about the Department of Education and she interviews people involved in this all the time. Karoline will also make this claim right at the beginning that nearly all of the job growth came from the private sector and also nearly all of the job growth went to U.S. citizens. Now, this is not what Donald Trump claims. Donald Trump claims that 100% of the job growth came from the private sector and 100% of the jobs went to American citizens, which again is not true. Obviously, she's making it clear that it's not true here. She also says that reading scores and math scores are way down as a reason to get rid of the Department of Education. Then Linda McMahon comes up. She doesn't really say much at all. She complains about college debt, that there's too much college debt, but does nothing to get rid of it. She almost gets it because, like I said, she admits that the Department of Education doesn't educate anyone, which again completely contradicts what Karoline Leavitt had said just before that. And then she says education is local and it should be overseen locally by those who best know the local needs. Locally, these are the worst states by education level: Arizona, Alabama, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Idaho, West Virginia, Arkansas, Nevada, Indiana, Louisiana, and Florida. Texas follows right behind Florida. While I believe that we should have the Department of Education, if these bumfuck know-nothing states that take from the blue and give nothing back to the federal government don't want federal funding for their education, let the students suffer. I mean, honestly, let them suffer. Linda McMahon says that she's seen AI work firsthand. She's seen students who use it in the morning for tailored learning, and in the afternoon they learn life skills using the AI that they learned. This is the same woman who, after she was nominated to be the Secretary of Education, called it A1 a bunch of times at an AI conference. Oh, and then she said that schools need to be stripped of their DEI policies. She doesn't understand what the 3 words in DEI are, and she admits the Department of Education has nothing to do with curriculum, which is one of the main factors for people wanting to dismantle it, is because they think that dismantling the Department of Education will get rid of critical race theory because they don't understand that that's something that is actually true, but also something that's not taught to like elementary school children. Now, McMahon is a worthless piece of shit, so I don't want to talk about her anymore. And though Karoline is also a worthless piece of shit, she now takes questions on other things, so we'll go over the questions she gets. Before she takes questions, though, Linda McMahon walks off and she comes up and she goes, "You guys were so calm with her. I wish you were that calm with me." Well, Karoline, if you'd stop lying, they might be. At one point, she just says, "I don't want to speak for the president." I don't know what the hell she thinks the job of the press secretary for the White House is, if not to speak for the president. Someone asked her a question about Zoran coming in tomorrow, and she says, "It speaks volumes that tomorrow we have a communist coming to the White House because that's who the Democrat Party elected as the mayor of the largest city in her country." That's a direct quote. She thinks that he's a communist. This woman cannot understand the difference between communism, socialism, authoritarianism, democratic socialism, democracy, capitalism. She doesn't understand the difference between any of those things at all. I just put this in my notes. I'd run for the mayor of a city if it meant that I got a 15-minute face-to-face with Donald Trump. If I had a chance to tell him what a worthless, vile, repulsive human being he is, it would be totally worth all of the scrutiny and time and effort that it takes to run for mayor of some city. She gets asked a question, does Trump want to execute members of Congress because he keeps saying on True Social that he does? And she says no. And his most recent tweet at the time she said that said, seditious behavior punishable by death. And he also had just recently reposted the following, hang them, George Washington would. She says we should not be talking about his response. We should be talking about what he's responding to. And then she says that Democrat leaders in this video need to follow the Constitution. And then she says that these Congress members knew what they were doing. They were signaling to people serving under Trump that they can defy him, which is potentially punishable by law. So she does think that they should, because he calls it sedition. She says it's punishable by law. Sedition and treason are potentially punishable by death. So yes, she thinks that they should, even though she said no. Then someone says, hey, isn't this inciting violence to be like, we should kill members of Congress who we disagree with? And she's like, why aren't you looking into what the Democrats are doing? I swear to God, that's her response. She says Trump has no idea what Mike Huckabee is doing as the ambassador to Israel. Just no clue, no idea whatsoever. Then she gets asked, what do you think about him calling a reporter piggy? And she goes, well, he's very frank and honest, and he was elected due to his frankness. It's called transparency. Her words here were just funny. She said that she saw the South African president running his mouth against Trump today. She gives an update on Russia-Ukraine. She says that Trump made it clear since day one that he wanted to see an end to this war. No, he promised the war would be over on day one. In fact, he promised it would be over before day one. In fact, he promised it would be over the day he got elected. She also says that he's frustrated with both sides for not ending it and that they should just deliver on his promise. Then a reporter asked him, hey, the proposal that you put forward calls for a bunch of concessions from Ukraine and next to nothing from Russia. What do you have to say about that? And she says, well, we speak to both sides equally and we want to hear out both sides, regardless of the fact that one of them is our ally and the other one is our biggest threat nationally, internationally, whatever. Aside from that fact, we're going to listen to both sides equally and hear what they both have to say. And finally, she says that she wants to remind you of the great success that they've had with peace in the Middle East, even though Israel has said very clearly that they do not agree to the statement or the proposal that Trump put forth. Then while she's walking out, it sounded like it was Caitlin Collins saying it, but she says, hey, you're misquoting Democrats on the video that you're talking about. That's not what they said. She was already walking out. No way she was coming back. All right, that's it for today. 10%ers, this is the first time we've done a Karoline one since I asked you to tag her. Go ahead and tag Karoline Leavitt in this video. Karoline, if you watch this video, which you won't, that's okay. You should respond to how stupidly you answered all of this and just let me know what you think. Additionally, if you are waiting for a Patreon video, this week is not going to be a Patreon video. What I did this week is I wrote my first ever article, and my wife is currently editing it to make sure that it makes sense what I'm saying to you guys. But basically, I broke down the investments in the United States, what they are as a percentage of what these companies say that they're giving, all of that stuff, how unlikely it is that it's true, what this money means for the average American workers, all of those things I covered in the article. So you're more than welcome to join my Patreon. If you're not, I'll be posting that later today once my wife finishes editing it. I've got, plenty of information in there on why it's all complete and utter bullshit, and why even what he says that contradicts with what that White House says is also complete and utter bullshit on what the White House is saying to even be the contradictory thing. Anyways, it's a mess. The whole thing is a mess, but I break it down very clearly and I think very understandably in a way that's very easy for anyone to take in. So if you want to see that, I'll post it, of course, on my Patreon, my Substack. I don't know how to link an article on TikTok. So if you do know how to link an article to subscribers only on TikTok, please DM me so I can figure that out. Otherwise, I'm just going to read the article on here and post this video and post that video to TikTok for subscribers only. And that's what you'll get. Anyways, love you guys. Also, please do tag Karoline Leavitt. Let's get like 1,500, a number that she can't ignore.